Hello everyone and welcome back to Rising Sign Astrology. In this video we're diving into one of the most challenging and probably defining alignments of the month. Mars in Libra is opposing Saturn and Neptune in Aries, all at the respective 1 degree points. And it's kicking off on August 8th. And this is a classic tension aspect, right? Where the planet of action and drive is directly facing off with the planet of discipline, limits, and reality checks. Mars in Libra pushes you to act through strategy, but also negotiation and partnership, while Saturn in Aries demands self-reliance and patience and a lot of resiliency in the face of obstacles. And the result is a moment where you may feel the urge to charge forward, yet find yourself slowed by resistance or responsibilities or the need to do things the right way instead of the fast, quick way that you may want to. So we're going to explore what this means not only for the collective, how it can show up as standoffs, delays, or pressure, but also individually, right? How it can manifest as a need to prove yourself. And we're going to do a rising sign breakdown for everyone so you know exactly where this friction point is activating in your own chart. And as always, I use Western whole sign house astrology as the foundation, but I also weave in fixed stars and mythology and also Vedic influences where they add either depth or clarity. And you can listen for your rising sun or moon sign, but your rising sign will show you the most accurate picture of where this energy is hitting your life on a practical level, right? And your sun sign will highlight where it might tie to your bigger paths and goals and career, while your moon sign will show how you're likely to feel and process the experience more internal. So with that said, let's get into it. This transit is probably one of the only tougher ones of the month of August. It certainly stands out within a relatively somewhat calm month before we enter the window of eclipses in September. So for all of us, when Mars in Libra opposes Saturn in Aries on August 8th, the energy that we're all going to feel is like hitting a wall just as you're trying to push forward. Mars in Libra wants to act, but it's doing so typically through partnership and strategic compromise rather than brute force. And Saturn in Aries, on the other hand, really tests your ability to take independent action and assert yourself. And it does so by just throwing obstacles in your way and forcing you to slow down and work within limits and just face your responsibilities head on. So we all may feel caught between the urge and need and want to move quickly and just the reality that progress in these areas of the chart, respectively, for all of us, requires a lot of patience and discipline and a willingness to just play the long game. And it's just not the time to bulldoze through, but rather to pace yourself and refine your approach and make sure that your actions are actually strategic but also sustainable. And frustrations can surface if you're trying to push for results before the groundwork is laid and solid. But if you use the transit to develop strategy and strengthen the boundaries that Saturn wants and confront challenges with persistence, you're going to come out of it stronger on the other side. Now, these are the two traditional malefics that are facing off, right? We have Mars, the planet of action, force, drive, and just decisive movement. And then we have Saturn, right? The planet of restriction and discipline and endurance. And when they oppose each other, it creates a tension between wanting to act now and being forced to slow down or wait or operate, but under real constraint. It's a clash between, will and reality. And the tension can be explosive. In a personal chart, this opposition typically shows up, I'm talking in a natal birth chart, as suppressed rage or frustration that's kept under control until something triggers a breakthrough or just blows up, right? It's the experience of being told no and tolerating hardship or even mistreatment for a really long time, and then suddenly reaching a breaking point where you just decide to take a bold, decisive action to push past whatever that barrier is. And when the flare up comes, it's not subtle. Like, it's a big burst of all this stored frustration coming out at once. And the challenge here is to acknowledge the difficulty and to use the friction as fuel and channel all of that pent up energy and frustration into something that's strategic and productive in terms of action, rather than just letting it erupt in a destructive manner, because it really has the potential for that. And the exact opposition is on August 8th, but the energy probably begins to peak around the 11th or the 12th, right? And that's when the moon gets involved. The moon is going to join Saturn and Neptune in Aries, pulling emotions into the mix and making reactions much more instinctive and personal and emotional. So it adds a real layer of vulnerability and emotional charge that can make responses just overblown or sharper or maybe more passionate or even destructive than was originally intended. Now, from a Vedic perspective, I think this also carries, the perception of the people versus the armed forces symbolism in some way, right? Saturn, referred to as Shani in the Vedic system, represents the common man, right? The working class, the poor, those who just endure the weight of laws and authority. He's the servant and the worker, and he's tied to systems and stability and the collective power of just ordinary people. And Mars, Mangala, on the other hand, is the warrior. He rules soldiers and military and police and militias and any force that, enforces through action or aggression. And when they oppose each other, it's the governed, right, the people pushing back against the enforcers. And the enforcers thus seeing the people and their resistance as an obstacle to be broken. And I think in more mundane astrology, this can coincide with protests, strikes, civil unrest, even power struggles between citizens and those in positions of power or armed authority in some way. And there's an element of hidden warfare under this Mars-Saturn opposition as well, right? People in your personal lives or even on the collective level may present one face publicly while quietly working against you behind the scenes. And it could show up as backroom deals, subtle sabotage, or allies who turn out not to be on your side at all. And words and promises made may just not match the actions that you're seeing in your life. And you could find that someone who appears cooperative is actually really undermining your efforts in some way. And it's a time to be very, very alert for those types of mixed signals, right? To read between the lines, use your intuition, and to protect your position by watching what people do rather than just trusting what they say. That's going to be very important. And the conflict isn't always out in the open, right? It could be fought subtly, right? Under the cover and guise of civility, right? Until that moment when the tension finally breaks. And because Saturn moves slowly and Mars moves quickly, the symbolism can also become one of long-term grinding societal pressure suddenly meeting sharp bursts of force. And in many historical cases, that's where the flashpoints of unrest have emerged, right? In either personal or collective terms, the Mars-Saturn opposition tests endurance and self-control and the ability to push through resistance without burning yourself out or, in extreme cases, just burning everything down. Now, when Mars opposes Saturn and Neptune together, as it did in May of 1989, but also March of 1953, the pattern in the collective tends to center around high stakes conflict where resistance meets suppression, and where hidden motives and disinformation blur the lines of what's really happening. In 1989, it coincided with military uprisings as well as executions and just violent crackdowns, right? There was an Ethiopian coup attempt, which devolved into a deadly power struggle. In China, there was an ethnic riot that saw thousands destroying property and clashing with, armed military and security forces. The same month in Bulgaria, that country experienced its most violent ethnic confrontation in years, right? And all of the events carried a very common thread. It was ordinary people pushing back against authority and then authority responding with force, often under a narrative shaped, right, Neptune, to justify the crackdown. Now, in the 1953 alignment, there was a similar story, right? In Kenya, they had rebels attack and they executed a brutal massacre, which was followed by then, retaliation and more violence. At the same time, in Pakistan, there were escalating unrest that led to martial law. Thousands of people died in that instance. And in both cases, and really all cases between, 89 and 53, and these all happened within days of the exact conjunction, it was the energy of Mars, right? Direct action and aggression opposing Saturn, control and restriction. And Neptune was just weaving in, confusion and propaganda. And it created a really volatile atmosphere where conflict wasn't just about physical confrontation. It was about controlling the story and manipulating perceptions and then blurring truth in order to justify force. So keep that in mind when we get to your personal readings within this video, because those themes, are going to surface as well. Hopefully not in actual physical, violence of any kind. But I would say overall, these patterns suggest that when the opposition happens, the collective is usually primed for clashes between the governed and those in the government, right? The people in power versus the people who are, under their power. And it often is layered with this theme of deception or misdirection that hides the full reality of the situation. And on a global and collective level, this Mars-Saturn opposition creates a very strong undercurrent of tension. And it's rooted in the realization that not everyone or every institution is what they've claimed to be. And there's a really growing sense of betrayal as people and leaders and governments are revealed to have been presenting one image publicly while working against those same interests behind the scenes. And it can fracture alliances and divide communities and just erode trust both within nations and between them. And I'd expect this energy to manifest as conflict that either erupts suddenly or simmers just below the surface, possibly triggered by, even environmental crises or storms that stress some existing foundations or systems in some way, but more likely and more often through direct standoffs between military and civilian populations. And the confrontations can be overt, right? Protests, clashes in the streets, or they could be more covert, like cyber attacks or targeted sabotage in some way. And on the geopolitical stage, it can really lead to shifts in diplomatic alignments, especially if nations fail to follow through on promises they've made, right? Like if there is a ceasefire or a treaty, like if those things collapse or are just abandoned, it's going to force others and a lot of people to reconsider who they stand beside when the pressure really starts to mount. So keep an eye on that in the collective, but also in your personal lives. And now that we've covered sort of just the big picture energy of this Mars-Saturn opposition, how it's shown up historically, etc., let's bring it now down to the personal level. And I'm going to walk through what this particular opposition is going to mean for each rising sign so you can see exactly where the tension is going to play out in your own personal chart. And we're going to look at which houses Mars and Saturn are activating for you, the kinds of challenges or pressures you're going to feel, and where you have the opportunity to turn that friction into progress. But remember, you can also listen for your sun and moon signs too, but your rising sign will give you the clearest picture of where the opposition lands in your real life 3D world in real tangible ways. And again, the exact opposition is happening on Friday the 8th, but I think it's going to peak between Monday the 11th and Wednesday the 13th. So just mark those times on your calendar and just be aware of the energies at play, not only in your own life but in the lives of everyone around you. All right, with that, let's jump in. My Aries rising. So for you, obviously this is personal. Mars is your chart ruler, which means this time period in August and the opposition is hitting you on a very personal level, right? With Mars in your seventh house of partnerships, contracts, and also open rivals, your focus is pulled towards other people, whether that's in business, personal relationships, or even public-facing dynamics. And Mars here can stir conflict or urgency in these connections, pushing you to take action and address imbalances, and in some cases just feel like you have to stand your ground. Now, Saturn and Neptune in your first house of self are pushing back, and it's reminding you that your identity, your boundaries, your personal integrity are all on the line. And this is a tension that can feel like you're being challenged to stay true to who you are while navigating the pressure or resistance from others who clearly have their own agenda. Now, the Saturn influence in your first can slow you down or make you second guess yourself, but it's also asking you to act with discipline rather than impulse. I know, not easy for my Aries. And Neptune's presence can make situations less clear cut. So you need to pay extra attention to what's actually fact versus what's assumption. And this can look like disagreements with a partner, a business partner, an open enemy, and feeling undermined in some way. Maybe you're undermined in a business contract negotiation as well, or you feel like you're dealing with people who are saying one thing but then acting another way. And the challenge is to avoid being reactive just to relieve the pressure, because once Mars, your ruler, is triggered, it's going to be easy to want to push straight through, and it can be destructive. So instead, try to use this opportunity to be strategic, right? Lean into Saturn, set clear boundaries, state your terms, and act when the timing is right rather than when the frustration peaks. And I think this opposition is testing the balance between your needs and then the demands or the actions of others. And if you approach it with patience and awareness, it's going to help you strengthen your position without burning bridges. You're learning how to hold your ground without letting someone else's resistance or urgency or lack of clarity or even deception throw you off your path. So by channeling Mars's energy into decisive but measured action, you're going to be able to navigate the opposition without losing your cool or your momentum or, at worst, compromising your core identity. So good luck, my Aries. Let me know how this plays out for you in the comments below. Okay, my Taurus rising. So for you, Mars is in your sixth house. And it puts a spotlight on your work, your daily routines, and your health. So this can bring urgency or conflict and a push to take decisive action, either in your job, with coworkers, or in managing your day-to-day responsibilities. And Mars here can make you more productive, yes, but it can also increase frustration if you're feeling overworked or underappreciated or just stuck dealing with inefficient systems around you. And across from this, we have Saturn and Neptune in your 12th house, and they're adding a layer of behind the scenes pressure. Saturn here can bring, subconscious fears and hidden responsibilities, or the need to face situations that you just would rather avoid. And Neptune's going to blur the details, and it's going to make it harder to see the full picture or even trust everything that you're being told. So this opposition can feel like you're being pulled between these very visible demands of your daily life in the 6th house and the invisible, more private struggles happening in the background of your 12th. So you might be working harder than ever while also carrying a lot of hidden stress or feeling like no one fully understands the full weight that's on your shoulders at this time. And Saturn in your 12th pushes you to be disciplined, especially in managing your inner world, whether that's addressing burnout, setting better boundaries, or dealing with lingering issues from the past. While Mars in your 6th is going to demand action in the here and now, like right now, right? So if you're not careful, the result can be exhaustion or burnout or just frustration spilling over into your work and health. And the key for the transit is really going to be to pacing yourself and separating what's urgent from what's important, right? You have to focus on the most important things on the list. Sometimes, 20% of the list is 80% of the importance. So keep that in mind, right? And you may be put in a position where you just need to cut out obligations that are just draining you, or restructure your day-to-day routine so you're not constantly just in reactive mode and reacting to pressure, specifically in the workplace. And it's going to be a moment to focus on sustainable effort, right? Handling the most important immediate tasks while also protecting your time and your energy and your mental head, your mental clarity, all of that stuff. And if you're able to do that and approach it strategically, you're going to be able to make more meaningful progress without letting all the hidden stress in the background undermine all the momentum in your 6th. So good luck, my Taurus folks. Let me know how this is going and drop a comment below. Good luck. Okay, my Gemini rising. So for you, Mars in your 5th house puts energy and urgency into areas connected to creativity and romance, children, but also personal expression and risk-taking and your entrepreneurial efforts. So you may feel a strong push to pursue whatever excites you, what brings you joy, and to take a chance, most likely creatively or romantically in some way, or maybe even assert yourself in some competitive situation. And Mars here can be very passionate and very driven, but it can also bring friction, especially if others don't share your vision or if your efforts aren't being recognized. And across from this, Saturn and Neptune in your 11th house of friendships, networks, and long-term goals is creating tension between your personal desires and then the expectations or the needs of your broader community or friendship group. And Saturn is going to be adding pressure through probably group responsibilities or some alliances that require discipline on your part, or you have an obligation to the group, right? Responsibilities that come with that. And Neptune can make certain relationships or friends or goals start to feel very unclear, or like maybe they're over idealized, right? Like, are these people really in my corner? Are they my friends? That type of vibe. And the opposition can feel like you're pulled between focusing on your own joy and your own creative fulfillment versus meeting obligations to those friends, to those collaborators, or to the larger causes that support your dreams. And Saturn in your 11th may test the strength of certain friendships or group connections at this time. And it's going to highlight where boundaries are needed. But Neptune can blur those lines. It can blur, your perception of loyalty at this time, making it harder to tell who is actually fully aligned with you. And Mars in the fifth wants immediate action and self expression. But Saturn and Neptune together are going to slow the pace and remind you that some ambitions, right, really do require long term commitment, but also clarity, clarity of purpose, especially when others or friends are involved. So, for you, the key for this transit is finding a way to pursue what really inspires you without alienating or overextending yourself within your social or professional networks. So, you may need to have a really honest conversation about expectations at this time, or to step back from unclear commitments, or to redefine your role within certain groups. And if you're able to approach it with patience, right, Saturn, but also the passion of that fifth house and the excitement that you have, you're going to be able to move forward with those goals in the fifth house, whatever they are, while keeping your long term alliances and dreams strong and healthy at the same time. So, Geminis, let us know how this is playing out for you. Drop a comment below, and good luck this week. Okay, my Cancer rising. So, for you, Mars is in your fourth house, and it's going to bring a lot of energy, but also potential friction into your home, family dynamics, and your private life, right? It can be a time when domestic responsibilities are going to feel more urgent, or when tensions with family members or household matters or routines are going to demand immediate action, right? Mars here can make you want to take control of your personal space or address some long-standing issues at home. But across from it, you're going to have Saturn and Neptune in your 10th house of career, but also public image. And they're going to be adding pressure from the outside world. Saturn may be placing some heavier professional demands on you, or just demands related to how you show up in the world, or even require you to have to prove yourself in a specific role. And Neptune at the same time can begin to blur the expectations around your career path or public reputation or responsibilities in relation to leadership that you may hold. And the opposition can feel like a tug of war, right, between the demands of your private life and the obligations of your public life. And Mars in the fourth really wants focus on your home, your foundation, your emotional security, your living situation, people closest to you, your inner circle, right, your family. While Saturn in your 10th is pushing you to stay disciplined and visible in your career and public image. And Neptune in the 10th is going to make it harder to get clear, or at least get a clear read on what your professional standing is at this time, right? You may be getting mixed signals from people in authority. And balancing these two areas can be challenging, especially if you feel like your personal needs are competing with external expectations. So the key with the transit is to set clear priorities and boundaries so that one area doesn't completely drain energy from the other. And if you push too hard in your career without tending to your home life, you risk burnout and emotional strain. Now, on the other hand, if you retreat entirely into personal matters, you may miss opportunities to strengthen your public image or your professional standing. So try to aim for very deliberate, small, steady steps. Saturn likes that in both areas, right? Even if progress feels a little bit slower than you'd like. This way you're able to maintain stability at home while still meeting the demands of your public role. And certainly, circle the 12th, 13th on the calendar, because that is when your chart ruler, the moon, is going to get involved directly in this opposition. And just be aware that emotions can be running high for you at this time. So with that said, good luck, my Cancers. Drop a comment and let me know how this goes for you. Okay, my Leo rising. So for you, Mars in your third house is going to really light up and energize themes of communication and short trips, learning, even interactions within your immediate environment or potentially with your siblings too. And it can be a time of urgent conversations or debates or a need to make quick decisions in some of these areas, but also potential conflicts, right, with neighbors, with colleagues, with siblings, right, especially if tensions have been building in this area. And Mars here is going to sharpen your words, right, leading to maybe cutting verbal barbs in some way. But it's also going to speed up your thinking. And so that could be great for getting things done. But again, it's going to increase the risk for speaking impulsively or potentially pushing too hard to prove a point. And across from this, you're going to have Saturn and Neptune in your ninth house of beliefs, higher education, travel, cross-cultural experiences, and just bigger picture vision. And Saturn's testing the foundation of your worldview at this time. It's pressing you to take a disciplined, long-term approach to your goals in these areas, while Neptune blurs the line between fact and assumption. So it's going to make it harder to get absolute clarity at this time. And the opposition can play out as tension between day-to-day facts and long-term ideals, right? Mars in the third wants action now. It wants to resolve issues immediately. It wants to push and win arguments. It wants to go full bore, right? While Saturn, the ninth, insists that you think about the bigger picture and act with integrity, and as Saturn always wants, to avoid shortcuts. So Neptune's influence with Saturn here in the ninth can make it tempting, so be aware, to cling to an idealized vision or to avoid inconvenient truths at this time. But Mars, opposing from the third, is going to force a confrontation with that information or with a perspective that challenges your beliefs. And it's going to create friction in conversations about ethics and politics, even education, or, even in plans for travel that you may have made, right? Especially so if others are pushing for an immediate answer or an immediate action at this time, and you just feel like, no, there's still uncertainty. I can't give you that. So be aware and understand that the key for this transit is to slow down your reactions and ground your thoughts and your choices in, one, accurate information, but also two, the long-term priorities you're looking towards. And if you approach these discussions with patience and a real willingness to see where the other side is coming from, you're going to be able to turn potential conflicts into actual constructive breakthroughs and conversations. So use the Martian energy to ask really pointed, sharp questions, yes, and to take decisive steps where needed, but let Saturn be the one that guides you towards actions that will work out more long term, right? That they can stand the test of time. So good luck this week, my Leos. Drop a comment and let me know how this plays out for you. Okay, my Virgo rising. So this is a more difficult one for you. You have Mars in your second house, and it's putting a real spotlight on money and resources and just your sense of personal value and how you value yourself, right? And it could bring a surge of motivation on one hand to earn more, or to protect what it is you have, or push forward with some important financial decisions. But it can also stir real conflict over money, or conflict around possessions, or just what you feel you're worth. And Mars here can make you more assertive in negotiations or more willing to take risks in order to secure your position and get what you want. And across from this, you have Saturn and Neptune in your eighth house of shared resources and debts and deeper commitments and entanglements that add just another layer of complexity to the situation. Saturn, for the next few years here, once he comes back next year into this house, is going to demand a lot of responsibility and long-term planning in how you manage joint finances, obligations, debts, inheritances, things of that sort. Your loans, right? And Neptune is going to blur the lines, making it harder to get a clear view or full transparency within these matters. So this opposition can feel like a push-pull between what's yours, right, yours alone, and then what's tied up with others, whether it's family, parents, a partner, a business partner, or even an institution like a bank, right? You have mortgages with the bank, or loans. And Mars in the second urges you to take action on your own behalf. But Saturn in the eighth is going to slow the process with rules and obligations or the need to confront difficult realities about shared responsibilities. And Neptune's influence can make certain agreements a little unclear, or it could bring up some idealized expectation that just doesn't match the facts or doesn't match reality. And as a result, you're going to feel pressure to move very quickly to protect your own resources or secure more resources while still having to navigate all of these eighth house obligations and uncertainties that are not entirely in your control. And the key with this transit is to act decisively but not recklessly, especially when it comes to your money and your self worth. So avoid making big financial moves based on incomplete information or promises that, haven't come to fruition yet. And be ready to ask hard questions if someone feels vague or you feel like something's being hidden from you in some way. And by using Mars' drive to take clear and deliberate steps and Saturn's discipline to then vet your options, you can come out of this, difficult opposition with renewed, stronger boundaries and a much clearer picture of what your resources actually look like. And as a result, an actual plan that supports not only your personal financial independence, but also your commitments, whether that's to another person or another institution. So, my Virgos, good luck. This is probably one of the more difficult ones, and let me know how this goes. Drop a comment below. Good luck. Okay, next up, my Libra rising. So, for you, you have Mars in your first house, so this cannot feel fun. Watch out for getting sick. Watch out for hurting yourself, an accident, getting cut, obviously. But more than that, Mars is putting the spotlight directly on you. Not only your physical body, but your decisions, your actions, how you assert yourself in the world. So this is a pretty energized opposition transit here that's going to make you feel more driven, more compelled to take action, to be more competitive and ready to take charge. But it can also make you more impatient and more reactive, especially if things aren't moving as quickly as you would like. And across from this, you have Saturn and Neptune in your seventh house of partnerships and marriage and business contracts and one-on-one relationships. And they're applying pressure through other people, right? The other, whether that's a romantic partner, a business ally, or even an open enemy or an open rival. The seventh house is the house of open enemies as well. So Saturn here demands boundaries, of course, right? But also commitment and responsibility and accountability within all these connections. But Neptune can really blur intentions, not only yours, but theirs, making it harder to fully trust what's being said or what's being promised. And the opposition can really play out as this tug of war between your goals and your identity versus the expectations or even the limitations coming from others. And Mars in your first wants to act independently and push forward on your own terms, right? But Saturn in your seventh can slow you down, right? Force you to navigate relationship obligations or power dynamics before making a move. Saturn in the seventh can also be health issues with a partner. And Neptune's influence can make certain partnerships feel uncertain or idealized in some way, which can then only add to the tension if you're not sure what others are truly aligned with as it relates to you. And the friction here can be productive in some ways, but only if it pushes you to clarify your own personal direction and then the terms of those key relationships. So the key with this opposition is going to be Take action, yes, but do it in a way that honors your own priorities without creating unnecessary conflict in your most important one-on-one relationships. So you need to be direct and honest about your needs while also being realistic about what others can or can't offer or can or can't do. And by balancing Mars' drive with Saturn's patience, but also Saturn's discernment, you can move forward and assert yourself effectively, but do so while building stronger and more clearly defined relationships with the other. So, good luck, my Libras. Let me know how this shows up in your life this week. Take care. Okay, my Scorpio rising. So, this is important for you because Mars obviously is your chart ruler. So when it's involved in a major opposition like this, the effects can feel very personal and very significant. And Mars is in your 12th house. So the energy is working behind the scenes rather than out in the open. And this can mean hidden frustrations or, private conflicts or a sense that you're dealing with challenges that you just can't fully discuss with other people. And the 12th house can also highlight endings and closure and the need to step back and then reassess your next move. But across from this, Saturn and Neptune is in your 6th house of work, routines, and health. And they're adding pressure. Saturn is demanding structure and responsibility in these areas, while Neptune is creating real uncertainty or, blurring reality or blurring boundaries within your day-to-day life routines, work, or with coworkers, or around your health. And you're going to feel caught between wanting to retreat, but then also needing to show up for obligations that, maybe they aren't fully clear, or maybe you just feel like they're just constantly shifting. And Saturn influences your 6th house by making the workload heavier, or your responsibilities feel more rigid, or your health or your body feeling more difficult and heavy to navigate. While Neptune can blur expectations and make it harder to pin down what's required of you or what's, ailing you in terms of your health. And the combination with Mars in the 12th can create a feeling of working under the surface and putting in effort that others don't see or others don't appreciate, or dealing with some form of quiet opposition within your environment. And it's important now to be very strategic about where you put your energy and to avoid draining yourself on situations that just aren't in your control. You may need to address unhealthy patterns in your work or daily habits or health. As the opposition is going to highlight where real discipline, Saturn, is needed, but also where maybe you've been overextending yourself without proper rest or without boundaries. And the transit is ultimately about finding a balance between what you give and what you keep for yourself. So if you push through blindly, like Mars just bulldoze through, you're going to risk burnout, or you're going to risk, physical breakdowns or even resentment. But if you're able to use the Martian energy to drive forward strategically, you can make progress, but it's going to come through cutting out what's unnecessary and really focusing on what truly matters, right? It's a good time to streamline your routines and strengthen boundaries in your work life or your day-to-day life and routines, and give yourself space to recharge and rest, right? 12th house, so you can face the responsibilities with more clarity. So, good luck, my Scorpios. Drop a comment and let me know how the week goes for you. Okay, my Sagittarius rising. So, for you, I don't think this one's going to be as difficult as some of the other signs. You have Mars in your 11th house, and it's bringing a lot of energy and drive and passion to your friendships, your social circles, your long-term dreams, goals, wishes for the future. So it could be a time when group projects or alliances or community involvement just demand more of your attention, energy, and drive, right? Mars here can push you to take a leadership role within these group settings, or to pursue some larger ambition with a real sense of passion and urgency. However, it can also stir up friction with friends, colleagues, or networks if there are disagreements over either the direction you're going, resources, or recognition, right? And across from this, you have Saturn and Neptune in your fifth house of children and creativity, personal expression and joy, and also romance. And it's testing how much you can invest in those areas, your joy, your children, your passions, even your love life, while still meeting the demands of your broader community, of your goals. And Saturn in the fifth can make you much more disciplined and serious about what, but also who you give your energy to. While Neptune can create real uncertainty around these situations, whether they be romantic or creative or around children. And this opposition can feel like a balancing act between your bigger goals connected to your social networks and your personal fulfillment through them, and your day-to-day joys, making time for fun, romance, creativity, time with your children, all of those things. And Mars in the 11th wants you to push forward with your role in the group, or with the plans and dreams that involve others. They're going to bring you closer to your goals. While Saturn in the 5th is reminding you to not lose sight of your own creative voice or your own personal standards or obligations to, romantic partners or children. And Neptune's presence can make certain romantic or creative opportunities or relations with children feel very inspiring, but also unclear. So you're going to need to watch for over idealizing either a situation or a person at this time. And the tension is going to come from feeling like your personal passions are competing with the obligations that you have to friends and collaborators and your goals for the future. And the key with the transit is going to find a way to keep your personal spark, your personal joy alive while still showing up for those bigger picture goals. And if you could set boundaries around your time and energy, you're going to be able to contribute more meaningfully, not only to collective efforts that, support your long-term goals, but also, with your activities and children and relationships that inspire you, and not having to sacrifice either. So by blending Mars's drive and passion and motivation with Saturn's discipline and boundaries, you really can strengthen those long-term goals while still making space for joy and fun and romance, and just the authentic self-expression that comes with the fifth house. So my Sag risings, good luck. Please drop a comment and let me know how the week goes for you. Okay, my Capricorn rising. So you guys are going to feel the pinch a little bit this week, I think. Saturn's your chart ruler, right? So the opposition is going to have a little bit of extra weight to it. And you have Mars in your 10th house. So the focus for you is going to be on your career, leadership, your public image, and just those, career-related goals that you're pushing towards in the outside world. And Mars here can make you very ambitious, more ambitious than normal. Also very decisive and ready to step into a leadership role and to take charge in your professional matters. But it can also stir up a lot of competition in the workplace or conflict with authority figures or colleagues or, within, with others that are holding similar leadership roles, right? And across from this, Saturn and Neptune, your fourth house of home, family, and private life, are pulling your attention inward. It's this opposition, this tension between your most visible part of the chart and your most private. So it's difficult. And Saturn in the fourth is going to bring heavier responsibilities into your personal life, whether it's more family obligations, caring for an elder in your life, or with caring for somebody in your home, or just dealing with property or living situation issues or changes. And Neptune there is going to blur the boundaries a bit and create uncertainty about what your long-term foundation, your home life looks like. And this opposition this week is going to feel like a real push-pull between those public responsibilities and your private life. And Mars in the 10th wants you to act decisively in your career and to go for it and, to secure an opportunity or protect your reputation or step into that leadership role. But Saturn in the 4th is reminding you that your personal stability cannot be ignored. And Neptune's influence here is going to make home or family matters feel unclear or just very emotionally complex at this time, adding an additional layer to this already tedious balancing act. And you're going to find yourself trying to push ahead professionally while some unresolved personal matters at home are going to quietly pull you down or affect your focus or just affect your energy overall. So the key with this transit, I would say, is to pace yourself and recognize that success in one area cannot come at the complete expense of the other, right? And it can't be zero sum. So if you could bring that Saturnian discipline that you're so well known for into how you manage your time and your boundaries, you can address your private responsibilities at home while still making really meaningful progress on the professional front. So it's a period for strategy and strategic action in your career that can also support your foundations at home rather than undermine them. So my Cap Risings, good luck this week. You really are in the hot seat. Please drop a comment and let me know how this is playing out for you. Good luck. Okay, my Aquarius rising. So like my Capricorns, Saturn is your traditional chart ruler. So this opposition, starting on the 8th, is going to carry more personal significance than it will for other signs. And you have Mars in your 9th house. So your focus is going to be on your beliefs, your long-term vision, legal matters or higher education, potentially even travel. And Mars here can bring a strong urge to take really decisive action in pursuing those new opportunities in those areas or defending your perspective as it relates to a belief. But it can also create real tension if other people challenge your viewpoint or if the plans that you have, maybe for travel, start to hit some logistical snags, right? And across from this, you're going to have Saturn and Neptune in your 3rd house of communication, local environment, siblings, just your day-to-day interactions. And Saturn here is going to be slowing the pace and demanding more clarity. And Saturn in the 3rd house creates just heavier mental workloads and barriers as it relates to communication or some logistical constraints. Right? Like maybe you're going on a trip and your Wi-Fi craps out and you're supposed to be online for work that day. Something like that at a very mundane level. But at the same time, you're going to have Neptune blurring the situation and blurring facts and making it harder to separate the truth from assumption within your day-to-day conversations or negotiations. And the opposition is going to feel like a struggle between your big picture ambitions, but then the realities of just the day-to-day life and details that we all have to go through. And Mars in the 9th wants you to, leap ahead and, push into the future. And Saturn in the 3rd is going to insist that you slow down. No, double check the information. Make sure you handle all the important immediate obligations before your next big move. And at the same time, you're going to have Neptune's influence with Saturn in the 3rd, adding another layer of confusion or getting mixed messages from people, or maybe there's an unclear arrangement or agreement that you're navigating, some misunderstanding, right? So it's going to be very important to be very precise with your words and to also double check details before you commit to a plan. And the tension is going to arise when all of the excitement, right, of pursuing a goal with the 9th house clashes with all of the patience required to handle all of the smaller logistical steps along the way. So be aware of that. And the key is going to be to, yes, feel that enthusiasm, but ground it, right? Ground it in a solid plan. That's what Saturn wants. And you could still move towards that larger vision or that travel opportunity or that legal endeavor, but Saturn is going to ask that you respect the process and not to, try to skip ahead or take shortcuts or, avoid rushing past some information that's critical. So if you're able to blend the boldness of Mars with the Saturnian discipline, you're going to be able to make tangible progress on those bigger goals without tripping over, some mistakes in the short term that were probably preventable. So keep that in mind, and good luck this week, my Aquarius folks. Take care. Okay, my Pisces risings. Should I say last but not least? I know. I'm a Pisces rising. I hate hearing that in every video. But for you, this is a pretty important one, I think. Neptune is your modern chart ruler, although I do put more emphasis on traditional rulership, which would be Jupiter for you. But the opposition is going to be relevant for you because you have Mars in your 8th house, which brings the focus to shared resources, investments, debts that you have with another, and just deeper commitments or entanglements, whether they be financial or emotional. And Mars here can stir urgency around these joint financial matters or some negotiation over assets or just situations that require trust and transparency with others. And it can also bring buried tensions that exist in close relationships back to the surface, particularly if there's an imbalance in the give or take, right? Are you both sitting at a table and your side is leaning more in your direction? And across from this, you're going to have Saturn and Neptune in your 2nd house of personal income, possessions, and self-worth. And it's asking you to take a really hard, long look at your own resources and what you value most, including how you value yourself. And Saturn here can make you more cautious or disciplined about money at this time, while Neptune can create some uncertainty or mixed signals about what's truly secure. And the opposition can feel like a real push-pull between protecting your own stability, your own income, and navigating the complex ties with others. And Mars in the 8th wants you to act decisively within these shared matters, right? Perhaps you want to secure better terms on a loan or set firmer boundaries in your budgeting with another, while Saturn in the 2nd reminds you that your independence and your financial security has to come first. And Neptune's influence in the 2nd can make it much harder to get just the full picture of your situation. Whether it's because, things are unclear, you're not getting accurate information or numbers, or there are shifting priorities, or just you're taking a more idealized view of what's actually possible. And the challenge is to avoid rushing into agreements or commitments without the facts, especially if emotions are running high, which it can be with Mars. So the key with the transit is going to be to approach your financial and, 8th house / trust-based matters with courage, but also caution, right? You're going to need to ask really honest, direct questions and to clarify expectations, and then ensure that any action you take within joint matters truly supports your long-term stability. And if you combine the Martian drive with the Saturnian discipline, you can use this opposition to strengthen your boundaries or solidify your resources and make choices that serve your independence, but also your deeper commitments. I should also point out that most Pisces risings at this time are very focused on their income. So with Saturn and Neptune in your 2nd house opposing Mars in the 8th, this could also manifest as a strong drive to build stability or to boost your income and to try to create a clearer financial structure for yourself. But the opposition from Mars in the 8th can feel like constant pushback from, shared financial obligations or debts or taxes or maybe other people controlling the resources. And it can manifest as you wanting to pour energy into earning more or securing, your own assets and boosting your income and your own self value at the same time, only to face just sudden demands or conflicts or power struggles tied to joint money or external funding in some way. And the tension can be very frustrating. You're going to be pulled between this disciplined, methodical effort that Saturn wants in the second house of like, hey, just put the effort in, just wait and it's going to come. And the reactive or even combative circumstances in the 8th that may force you to redirect your focus or feel like you have to fight to keep what you've earned or to get more. And the result is going to be a period where, the financial motivation all around is going to be high. But so are the challenges from outside pressures trying to, claim a piece of it or fight you on it as well. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, good luck this week, my Pisces, and drop a comment and let me know how this is manifesting for you. Take care. Okay, well, thank you for sticking with me through this entire breakdown, and for tuning in. This wraps the deep dive into the Mars-Saturn opposition and all of the ripples that it's going to send through not only the collective but also your own chart. And just know, especially as it relates to August, this is not easy astrology. It is a clash between the two, traditional malefic heavyweights, and it tends to reveal where the pressure has been building and where limits are being tested. And hidden conflicts may finally come to the surface, so be aware of that and use that information consciously. And if you're already feeling the friction or just want clarity on how this energy is showing up in your own chart, you can always reach out to me for a personal reading at risingsignastrology.com. And I'll walk you through exactly where Mars and Saturn are hitting for you or any other general questions you have about what's going on in your life. I offer, personal consultations, career consultations, romance, but also just, general birth chart, evaluations. So if this breakdown was helpful, please, I appreciate it if you give it a like, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It really does help the content not only reach more people who might benefit from it, but also tells the algorithm that this is content that's worth sharing with other astrology lovers out there. So with that said, good luck this week, good luck this month, and thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take care.